Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 22 team selection. It is a double game week. I've got 2 free transfers, plenty of players I want to bring in and lots I want to take out as well. If you're enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, before we take a look at my team ahead of Game Week 22, I do just want to give a massive shout out to Surfshark, who have sponsored today's video. Surfshark is a VPN service that allows you to browse privately, hide your location, blocks malware and annoying ads, but also allows you to stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Not only does it keep you safe, but the most useful feature is that you can trick your computer into thinking that you're in a different country by changing your virtual location. This allows you to access content and websites from over 100 different countries through Surfshark. For example, say you want to watch my favourite film series of all time, The Dark Knight Trilogy, but it isn't available in the UK. No issue at all, you can simply switch your virtual location to Hungary and bam, you can watch those films. I did this very recently to watch No Way Home, the latest Spider-Man film, which is not available currently in the UK. This also works for YouTube as well. I'm sure you've all seen those annoying pesky not available in your country messages when you're watching football highlights. Well, this isn't an issue when you have Surfshark. Not only are Surfshark sponsoring today's video, but they are also offering an incredible 83% off and 3 months free for you guys if you click the link in the description or use the code FPL Raptor. Like I said, stay safe on public Wi-Fi, increase the security on your computer, but also access content from around the world. And on top of that, you are also supporting the channel as well. So massive shout out to Surfshark. But without further ado, let's jump to today's video. So as always, I'm going to show you how my team looks without having made any transfers. And I will probably be making, as I usually do, my transfers on the deadline stream on Friday this week. Not Saturday. It's a Friday evening deadline UK time. So do tune into the deadline stream. I'll be making my transfers there and then. But I'll show you the way the team looks. I've got 2 free transfers, 0.3 million in the bank. I'm on the back of 2 very big red arrows. I was 1.7, 1.8k after the World Cup. And I'm down now at 5.5. So it hasn't been a good few weeks for me. But that means that the only way is up, hopefully. Fingers crossed. So green arrows are on the horizon. And there are lots of things that I can do with those 2 free transfers. And I need your help as always. Starting off with the defense. And you can also see the bench there for context as well. Kepa versus Ederson. Basically, I'm going to get this wrong every week. I'll hold my hands up. The rotation hasn't worked very well. But as I sort of drive home every single time, if I didn't go for Ederson, I would have gone for Cancelo and I wouldn't have had Luke Shaw. So I actually think I'm still up on points, despite having made horrendous decisions every week, whether to start Kepa or Ederson. So I'll hold my hands up. The rotation hasn't gone well. Fingers crossed this is the one. But again, Fulham at home. Fulham have been pretty good. Tottenham away. City are the better defence. You could make a justification to start Ederson. I just think Kepa makes so many saves. And Chelsea are actually a worse defence. And I think as long as they keep a clean sheet, that is actually a benefit for keepers a lot of the time. Because like I said, they make lots of saves. They get bonus points. If Ederson keeps a clean sheet, usually will make no more than 1 or 2 saves, which means normally, again, he won't pick up any bonus points. The only week he picked up bonus points was the week that I benched him. So I'm going to start, I think I'm starting Kepa. Let me know down below what you think of that decision. And then the back 3 is fairly standard. Luke Shaw, I don't need to say much about. There were worries that he was ill. Well, he was ill. There were worries that he was going to be ill for Game Week 22, but he started an EFL Cup semi-final second leg, which was very surprising for me. Played 90 minutes. I'm interested to see what happens in Game Week 22 because you could say that Malacia was like completely rested. Is there a chance that Luke Shaw only plays 1 and Malacia plays 1 as well? Something that I've noticed with Ten Hag, though, is he just doesn't like to rotate his team. I think he must be a manager that favours kind of rhythm and players playing a lot and trying to get the best results in every possible game. So Luke Shaw is our best left back by some distance. He's arguably our second best left centre back after Martinez. So I would still back Luke Shaw to play close to 180 minutes in this double, but maybe a slight worry that he's coming off the back of an illness. He played 90 minutes and Malacia had basically a complete rest there. So maybe I'm overthinking it. Let me know down below in the comments what you think. But Luke Shaw should be fine. At the moment, he's got my Vice armband. Trippier is a no-brainer to own. I'm not going to go over Trippier every single week, but the fixtures coming up for Newcastle are fine. In Game Week 25, Newcastle blank, along with Manchester United, Brentford and Brighton. We've been discussing that for weeks now. Those are the 4 teams that are going to blank for 25. Trippier will be one of the players, probably along with Shaw and Rashford, that I don't sell and I just put on my bench in Game Week 25. But you could look to sell him, I suppose, if you think that Newcastle are going to start conceding. But we haven't seen many signs that their defence is going to slow down anytime soon. And then I've got Ben White as well. I do think Ben White is fine. I would argue that Gabriel is the better defender for maybe being slightly more nailed and having slightly better goal threat. But I do like the fact that I've got an Arsenal defender. Yes, I love Ødegaard. Martinelli still, I think, is a good option, as we'll discuss in a second. Saka and Nketiah, they've got really good attackers. But I do also like covering the Arsenal defence because they are also arguably the second or third best defense in the league this season. And it's nice to be able to cover that. Even if he doesn't pick up many attacking returns or bonus points, I feel like he's a relatively safe player to have in the team. So that's the back three. As you can see on the bench, still got Reece James. And he could start. And interestingly, Fulham versus Chelsea is the early kickoff in Game Week 22 on the Friday evening. Even if James is starting, though, I don't think I would start him because even if he starts, he's going to get an early sub. There's no way he just comes back and plays 90 minutes. He could get kind of 50 minutes or maybe the first half. And that would be a double up on the Chelsea defence against a decent Fulham side. I'm not sure how I feel about that, especially as I might sell Mitrovic and I've benched Andreas. That just spells disaster. So even if he starts, I might just keep him on the bench one more week. But at the moment, I have no plans to sell him because he's a good option in blank Game Week 25. There aren't any other defenders I really want. I might end up just keeping Reece James. And then the fifth and final defender is Castagna. In hindsight, maybe not even hindsight, keeping Castagna on my Game Week 17 unlimited transfers wasn't the best idea. Leicester were sort of hit and miss across the season defensively. I was hoping we'd see similar form to what we saw at the back end of the first half of the season, but they've almost regressed back to the start of the season when they were just conceding for fun. They just don't look like a good team at the moment. Castagna's not even showing much attacking threat. So again, in hindsight, maybe not the best pick as my 4th/5th defender. And then Leicester play against Arsenal in Game Week 25 when I really need him. So at the moment, a little bit disappointed with Castagna. Maybe in the future, I'd be looking to sell him. But for now, he's playing. He could get something in the weeks that I need him. I'm going to keep him. So back five, very, very unlikely to change. Keeper situation, probably unlikely to change as well. Let's move on to the midfield and the attack where most of the transfers will probably happen. So let's start with the main man, Marcus Rashford. He does have the armband. He's just in such good form. And I know people laugh at this word sometimes. What does form actually mean? He's scoring goals and he looks good and his data's good. And when everything lines up like this, and he's one of the only players with a double game week with 2 home fixtures, it feels like a bit of a no-brainer. And what I don't want to be sucked into is thinking, I've had a few red arrows in a row, my rank has dropped, let me try and do something different to try and make that ground back up. Do I think Marcus Rashford will outscore every other player this week in FPL? If I had to guess, I would say yes so. That isn't to say that I don't think Bruno's a great option, who I do think is probably the second best captaincy option this week. But if you were to ask me, and you gave me no indication of ownership, who would outscore who, let's say I don't even play FPL, I think if you ask just a general football fan, they'd say Marcus Rashford will get you more goals and assists over the next 2 games. So I think I need to strip it back, go that simple, and not get carried away with trying to catch up to the rank that I was at. And I think this goes for most people. Unless you're at a rank that you're really, really unhappy with, and I mean maybe like back in the millions and you feel like you've got to do something different, each week, I would just make the decisions that you think will get you the most points. Try to ignore ownership. Try to ignore taking massive risks that you don't need to. But for me, Rashford is a slightly better captaincy option than Bruno. So even if I bring Bruno in, I think I'm probably 80% Rashford, 20% Bruno. Let me know down below in the comments if anyone is planning on captaining Bruno themselves. Then we've got Martinelli. I'm actually quite happy with Martinelli. If you want my opinion on Martinelli and you want kind of a detailed, I think it was about 5 or 6 minute discussion, my video earlier in the week, the Game Week preview video, you can go back and watch that. I talk about Martinelli in detail, but his data is still really strong. It's actually improved in some aspects post-World Cup. Coleman, I do not think he's going to be able to deal with Martinelli at the weekend in Game Week 22. And like I said in that video, Everton concede a lot of chances down their right flank, which is where Martinelli will be operating. He's getting involved in the action. And at the moment, yes, I do think Trossard and Smith Rowe will take minutes off of Martinelli in the future. At the moment, I still think he's relatively nailed. I think he'll start every game. Yes, he might get a slightly early sub, but hopefully he's done the damage by then anyway. So I don't think Martinelli is a better option than Nketiah or Ødegaard. I think they are still the 2 best Arsenal assets. But I don't think it's worth a transfer at the moment to do Martinelli to Ødegaard. If you have nothing to do with your team, or maybe in Game Week 23, I could definitely see justification for that. But for me now, when I've got other players I want to bring in, and there's a double right in front of me, and I've already got an Arsenal asset on the side where I think Everton are going to be very weak, I don't have any plans to sell Martinelli myself. So where it gets a little bit more interesting then is 2 players that could make way this week. But I'll start with De Bruyne because I really don't want to sell him. As you'll see in the next section when I go on to my transfer plans, there is an option to just do De Bruyne to Fernandes, then back to De Bruyne, or do De Bruyne to Fernandes, keep Fernandes, and then try and work out a way to get Mahrez in for someone like a Martinelli or an Almiron if I want to. So if I still want that City attacker. So maybe just not get De Bruyne back in. Because let's be honest, De Bruyne is probably not justifying his price tag, but neither is Salah. Kane is probably doing so, but on a more consistent basis rather than Haaland. Haaland obviously is, but the premiums this year have generally been quite disappointing. I think it's just because Haaland's so good as well, he set that standard. But if Mahrez continues to start, Mahrez is definitely better value than De Bruyne. So there is justification to sell him, and it's a much easier move for me to go De Bruyne to Fernandes than to try and do Kane down and then bring Fernandes in that way, which I'll discuss in a second. So I could sell him, but I really want him for double game week 23. And because there is another route to get Fernandes in, and I don't have to sell De Bruyne to do it, I think I'm currently favouring the other route. If De Bruyne didn't have a double in 23, I'll be honest, I would probably just do De Bruyne to Fernandes, and then I would just keep having just Ederson and Haaland as my only two City assets. It really is that double. And also in blank game week 25, De Bruyne plays against Bournemouth, and I think that's a week where we're going to want all of our players to be playing, and we want all of our players to be performing as well as possible because we're not going to have much of a bench. So I like the fact that De Bruyne has also got a nice fixture in 25 as well. 28 could be a blank. We don't know yet for Manchester City, but I'm about 70% sure I'll be keeping De Bruyne, but there is a small part of me that is thinking it's a possibility to do De Bruyne to Bruno and then either back again or look to get Mahrez in or just go without a second City attacker. Let me know down below in the comments, are you looking at selling De Bruyne for Bruno? And if so, are you going to go straight back to De Bruyne or are you just going to go without? And then the final player, who, I'll be honest, is almost definitely getting sold this week. 3 of my transfer options, I've got 4 options I'll show you in the next section. 3 of those options involve selling Almiron, and it involves getting Bruno Fernandes in that spot. So I don't dislike Almiron as an option. I still think he's okay, but the data's not been strong all season. He doesn't appear to be in that hot streak. You can just tell when you're watching a play, you feel like they're going to score every time they get it. I don't quite get that feeling with Almiron at the moment. And I think there are lots of exciting options. You could go for a Matoma or a March if you can get around blank game week 25. Erdegaard if you can afford it. And then, like I said, all the way up to Bruno Fernandes could be a really nice shout as well. So for me, I don't really want Almiron in my team. And the fact that Newcastle blank in game week 25, I'm going to have to sell him soon anyway. I know the next few fixtures are actually decent for Newcastle and they are still attacking well, but I feel like now is probably the time to jump off. He's still owned by about 70% of managers in the top 10k. So for me at my rank, if I sell Almiron, it's a bit of a risk because if he decides to start performing at that point, then it's going to really damage my rank, but it's also an opportunity for me. And like I said, I don't really look at ownership, but it is also a nice advantage that I could maybe bring in Bruno Fernandes for Almiron, who is going to be lower owned than Almiron, surprisingly, for the double, and also get a player with 2 fixtures. So at the moment, Almiron looks like he could be sold. And then the 5th and final midfielder is Andreas, Chelsea away. He'll sit on the bench. He plays Wolves in blank game week 25. So when I need Andreas, I can call upon him. And he may be on penalties ahead of Mitrovic. We'll have to see if Fulham get a penalty soon, whether Andreas finally takes them off of Mitrovic. So that's the midfield. Let's move on to the 3 forwards. So finally, the 3 forwards. I don't really need to talk about Haaland. I don't want to captain Haaland this week because I'm a sucker for a double game week, as you'll know if you've watched my content for a while. So I will be captaining one of Rashford or Bruno, probably Rashford. If you want to captain Haaland, absolutely no issue with that, but it's not for me. The other 2 strikers could both make way. I would like to keep Kane, and I would feel much happier selling Mitrovic. His data's dropped slightly. Fulham's data's dropped slightly. And also, I still don't know if he's on penalties with his absolutely atrocious record across his career, but also this season as well. So I would not mind selling Mitrovic, but I also don't mind keeping either. Obviously, Kane is incredibly consistent. He's putting up good data, and he will get you returns. It's just whether he justifies the price tag, and is it worth having all that money invested in him? I know De Bruyne doesn't probably justify the price tag either, but is it worth having all that money invested when there are no upcoming doubles? And Nketiah is performing so well, Tony's performing well as well, and it would allow me to, if I sell Kane down to one of those, like I said, maybe upgrade Almiron to Bruno and just build the rest of my team in the way that I want. So it's less so that I don't think Kane's a good option, and just whether I can get some more value from other players and upgrade in other positions. So he's probably the sacrifice in the 3 that I've got, just because Man City have that double game week 23. Fixtures aren't bad for Spurs, but they're not great. And like I said, no upcoming doubles at the moment, at least. And then Mitrovic is a tricky one because I don't think you need to sell Mitrovic. But like I said, data's not perfect for him. And I just feel like there is an opportunity to move to some other players, whether that be a player that doubles in 22 like a Gnonto, or whether that be just someone like an Ivan Toney who's performing very well, or maybe an Nketiah if I don't bring Nketiah in for Kane. So it really depends on my other transfers. Mitrovic is one of those players I would sort of happily keep all season, really, because you'd expect him to tick along. But I think at the right point, there are probably better options. It's just trying to time that. Whereas, like I said, with Mitrovic, you know if you own him for an extended period, he'll get you goals. But I do feel like if you time the right player, like bringing in Nketiah at some point, or Tony in the weeks where he performed well, I feel like you can get more points. So at the moment, I'm not really tied to Kane or Mitrovic. And if we now look at my team in entirety, because you can see it all on your screen, the players that I'm looking at selling are Almiron, Kane, and Mitrovic are probably the 3 that are most likely to go. De Bruyne could go as well. And then if I want to make a defensive transfer, I wouldn't mind selling James or Castagna, but I don't really feel the need to. I've got 3 really strong defenders already, and both James and Castagna, again, assuming James is fit by then and he's not got injured again, they play in blank game week 25. So I don't feel the need to touch those. So for me, it's really Almiron, Mitrovic, Kane. And it's not that I want to sell Kane particularly. It's just that I do really want Bruno. So with all of that being said, before we move on to my transfer options, let me know in the comments, what would you do with my team? Before I bias you with my opinion on what I'm currently leaning towards, what would you do with my team? 2 free transfers, 0.3 million in the bank. I wouldn't mind taking a -4, but preferably just using 1 or 2 of the free transfers. Let's take a look at what I'm currently planning. So here are the 4 transfer options, but I think I can go through them relatively quickly because I do have a favourite at the moment, and it's the way that I'm leaning, as you could sort of tell by the previous section. So option 1 is I don't touch Kane because I don't want Bruno Fernandes. And as you can see, by options 2, 3, and 4, they all involve selling Kane or De Bruyne to get in Bruno Fernandes. So let's say I decide, actually, I don't want Bruno Fernandes for whatever reason. I've got 2 free transfers and I'd like to use 1. I'd probably just do Mitrovic to Nketiah. I could do Martinelli to Ødegaard if I wanted to, but I want to get the Arsenal triple up in, and then next week I could decide if I wanted to that now's the time to do Martinelli to Ødegaard if I want to make that switch. It's a bit sideways, but again, Ødegaard's minutes are so secure that it probably is worth it. So the non-Bruno option is Mitrovic to Nketiah. The other 3, like I said, all involve trying to get the main man in, because I am a Manchester United fan, but I also think this is a really nice double. 2 home fixtures, and then good fixtures in 23 and 24 as well. Options 2 and 3 are the free transfer moves to get Bruno in. So the one that I'm currently favouring, my favourite at the moment, is option 2, which is Kane to Nketiah and Almiron to Fernandes. Again, I'm not saying Kane's a bad option. I don't want to sell Kane. But if you're going to ask me, who will score more points over the next 2 weeks, especially, and consider as well, Fernandes has a double in 22 and Nketiah has a double in 23. Is it Kane and Almiron or Nketiah and Fernandes? It is Nketiah and Fernandes. So it's not that I don't like Kane and Almiron. It's more so that the other 2 options I just think will outscore them, especially with the 2 extra fixtures that you get. And that's for free too. So that's the way I'm currently leaning if I was to make the move now. Option 3 is exactly the same thing, but rather than selling Kane to Nketiah, I'm doing De Bruyne to Ødegaard. So it's still Almiron to Fernandes, so I'm still losing Almiron for Fernandes, but to get the funds to do that, it's selling De Bruyne to Ødegaard. So basically the combination is Kane and Ødegaard or De Bruyne and Nketiah. And I think when I say it like that, it's actually a lot closer than I think. But then I consider the extra fixture in 23, and that's what sways me in favour of De Bruyne and Ødegaard, if that makes sense. So at the moment, options 2 and 3 are the most likely, but I'm currently leaning the way of selling Kane ahead of De Bruyne. I'd argue Kane's a slightly better premium. It's just that extra fixture. And I know it shouldn't impact me that much because it's not even a great extra fixture there for Man City. It's against Arsenal. So it's not a fantastic one. But I do like that extra opportunity. And there's not a massive gap between De Bruyne and Kane's expected goal involvement. Actually, De Bruyne has been underperforming since the World Cup, his expected goal involvement. So I do expect returns to be there very soon for De Bruyne. The only concern, I guess, which I didn't discuss in the previous section, is De Bruyne was benched earlier in the season against Tottenham. If Pep wants to just recreate that performance, he could bench De Bruyne again and start Alvarez. So that's a slight concern for 22, but I guess that's maybe overthinking it slightly. Let me know what you think. And then option 4 is basically option 2, but just an additional hit of Mitrovic to Gnonto. And I like this as well because I still get the Kane to Nketiah, Almiron to Fernandes, but I also get to replace Mitrovic with another double game week player. And assuming he still has his place by game week 25, which speaking to Leeds fans, they think he will, Gnonto's got a decent fixture in 25 as well. So I don't think that's a major issue. So I look at that and I think, actually, whilst I don't need to take a hit and I'm not desperate to, I quite like that. But the thing is, if Mitrovic is still on penalties, and even regardless, he can score in any week, and I'm still not 100% convinced by Gnonto. It's not necessarily that I think he's bad. It's just that the underlying data is not necessarily suggesting that he's going to continue to get attacking returns on a regular basis. He's sitting at about a 0.4 expected goal involvement, which, again, isn't bad for his price, but you're not going to get multiple returns across a game, usually, according to the data. So I guess 2, I would say I'm about 70% in favour of 2, and then kind of like 10 to 15% for option 3 and 4. Option 1's very unlikely just because I want Bruno. But if for some reason he gets injured or I decide against it, then potentially option 1 is going to be the one I go for. The final thing to note is around sort of game week 25. So if I just go back to my team for sort of this coming week, At the moment, I've got Trippier, Shaw, Rashford, and Almiron. So 4 players that blank in Game Week 25. Reece James, I'm going to say, let's say he's going to be fit for 25. He might not be fit this week, but let's say that he will play in Game Week 25. Note that my bench is also Andreas and Castagna. So I have 15 playing players, which means that I only have Shaw, Trippier, Rashford, and Almiron. There are only 4 players that will not play in 25 for me, assuming no one else is injured. Remember, I can bench 3 of them, and my keeper situation is fine as well. So I can bench 3 of them. So I only need to sell 1 of them before 25. And remember, I'm doing Almiron to Bruno. So whilst I am bringing in Bruno Fernandes, who blanks in 25, I'm replacing Almiron. So I'm not getting an extra blanker. I'm just replacing one blanker with another blanker. And I am saying blanker, by the way. So only 4. That means that I've got a free transfer in 23, a free transfer in 24, and a free transfer in 25 to replace 1 or 2 of those that blank in 25. So I'm in a really strong position. And as a result, I wouldn't mind bringing in Bruno. And I wouldn't even mind maybe bringing in Matoma if I fancied it, or another player that does blank in 25, because I can still deal with it. So that's the situation that I'm in. It will probably be Bruno Fernandes that gets sold ahead of Game Week 25. And I'll probably keep Rashford, Trippier, and Shaw on the bench. And the team will be in a very strong position. So that's the current plan. Almiron and Kane to Nketiah and Fernandes. Let me know what you think of that down below. And let me know what some of your dilemmas are down below as well. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 22 team selection. Please do drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it today. Drop a comment down below, as I always say, to feed those algorithm gods. They're always very hungry. And make sure to subscribe as well. We are on the road to 70,000 subscribers. I know we just hit 60,000, but the channel is still growing at such a rate, and I'm so incredibly grateful for all of the support. Also, if you would like to support the channel as well, do check out Surfshark as well. Link will be in the description. It's super cheap if you use the code FPL Raptor, or just use the link in the description as well. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.